to now we've got all this paperwork, and it becomes a nightmare of, it starts out with a few pages, and before you know it, it's 80,000 pages of EPA regulations, you know? So I know this is the beginning, the start of something, so I think people feel the uneasiness with the potential representation that with one person's definition of a term that is hidden in a lot of legal jargon is beyond the scope of what most people want to have to deal with. And so that's why I feel like it moves from a blue-collar position to a white-collar position. And I don't know if that's the right way to look at how people view building codes and regulations, but with your own property, your own house, it's different than your commercial structures that is regulated. So if you're going to go buy a new home, or just a home that's old and used, like we're talking about, balloon construction and things like that, in a sense, you're looking at, you have, if you're getting a home loan, whether it's a FHA or HUD or whatever, you have to get you'd be wise to get a building inspection done anyway. So you're going to pay for that part of your loan. You know, commercial construction has its own set of standards, but when we start the process, I think that's a big concern for a lot of people, and that becomes something that, you know, you start telling people what they can and can't do with every aspect of their lives. So it's a theory of how we want to progress as a society. You know, and you've seen this on a national level where with our elections and how there's talk about repealing massive amount of legislation that has burdened this country for growth. So you could argue two sides of the situation where we want to grow in this community. We're seeing it over in Camden, and there's growth going to happen here in Delphi too. But that growth doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, the point of view that, hey, if we have all these safety codes and regulations, that all of a sudden we're going to create growth. There's a general feeling that we're just getting back up on our feet after the 2008 housing bubble burst, right? So, I mean, I don't know if I'm speaking for everyone, but I know there's that tension, that feeling that we're just piling on more regulation that could burden the people that don't have the time to go through all the documentation and research all that stuff. And I know Doug does a pretty good job of different things, you know, when it comes to figuring it out. But sometimes we differ too on how we interpret what the laws are, because look at floodplains. That's fairly new for people to kind of take and swallow, you know. So there's a lot of details to the floodplain program and what you can and can't do, and there's a lot of overlap. So nobody wants to be penalized because they didn't know, but the law doesn't put it that way. You know, you become penalized regardless. So that's probably, I get that feeling from talking to a lot of different people, but I know we can kind of sort of fight about small little parts of why certain communities do these things and how they feel stifled or they don't feel stifled. And we all know that we want to improve. There's no doubt about it. But I'm not sure if this is the way to go about it. And that's why I think we do have the work study situation here, because this is a stepping stone, and I think people feel strongly maybe not even getting started because of that reason, that they're afraid that we'll be bogged down with too much paperwork that can oftentimes, when you do your taxes, it used to take a day, less than a day or a few hours to do your taxes. Now, it's way more than that. So, and a lot of times you've got to hire someone to do your taxes. So, with all those policies comes money out of your own pocket. And as people that are just working to make a living, that's where it starts to become overwhelming for a lot of people. So, I just thought I'd throw that out and maybe, you know,
I'd like to address what you just said.
Yes.
Number one, I keep hearing obsessed or pushed down, no growth. Tippecanoe County and Lafayette's growing from every side there is. People are paying them things, they're doing the jobs correctly, number one. Number two, there is nobody in this room I keep hearing about the Lafayette and all these big cities. We gave a committee and tasked them with coming up with a workable Chapter 150 so we could address it. You, sir, were on that committee.
I wasn't on the committee.
You were there anyway.
I was there.
I'll acknowledge that. But you guys brought back nothing. We didn't try to enforce anything. That law has been on the books since 1992. This man and this man's worried about Tippecanoe County. I don't know where that information's coming from. There's nobody on this council that said we were going to get as strict as Tippecanoe County. We have nothing to do with Carroll County. We're talking about the city of Delphi. We wanted to come up with a workable ordinance that included the old buildings, the new buildings, and safety and health. And if you tell me what I think I heard you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, that because you buy a house and want to rent it, but you don't have the money, you think it's right to do a shortcut and then rent that to people. You said some blue collar workers don't have the money to do that.
No, it's
So
not
they don't
about your
want
own
to pay.
personal property.
Let me speak.
Okay.
So they don't want to pay for a permit. We have said over and over, it's on major remodels, it's on new buildings. That's all this is about. This isn't about your rental insurance. If you don't go in there and rip out all the walls and do everything, you don't have to buy anything. That's why I get frustrated with this. We want the people, the contractors, the landlords, to get involved in a committee and give us some guidance. That didn't happen. So now the mayor's asked to be able to compile that information and present it to all of us so we have some clue where we can go.
But I think
But
in
we
no-
have to have growth. And that thing over in Camden you're talking about, that didn't happen without change.
But
We had to
that's your
rezone
opinion.
that so
I
that
agree.
could happen.
I
Things
see.
have to happen to have change. You can't sit here and tell me if we do nothing that we're gonna get better. Because we've lost our businesses, our houses are empty, they're rundown properties, we are not getting better. I've lived here all my life. We're not growing. We got some housing, or some nice front stores, but they're still the same buildings on the back. We got some nice roads, but we're still the same buildings, we're still the same sewers, we're still the same water. We have got to change. And to sit here and fight over something and compare it to Lafayette, when that's never been said on this council, somebody's feeding the people bad information. We want the input from the contractors, from the landlords, to tell us what we can do that works for everybody. Nobody up here. Because as far as I know, it's just myself, Councilman Traeger, and the mayor that think this is a good idea. And none of us had said we're gonna come out here with a hook and chain and tie you down so you can't do anything on your house without being burdened. We said, look at it, come up with good ideas, check the permit prices, tell us what it takes. And you brought us back nothing. And now you're standing here still complaining. You
No,
brought us
no,
back
I'm not
nothing.
complaining, Brian.
Well, sorry,
This
that's
is
how
your
I take it.
opinion. This is your opinion,
Absolutely.
and
I'm
you're saying
entitled to
that
it.
this is the growth that you want. And I don't wanna offend you, but
You're not even from here. Don't tell me about that. I grew up in this town. I've lived in
Wow.
this town all my life except the time I
Okay,
served my
enough.
country.
boy.
Public comment.
Well, that's just one kind of thing that worries me too. I mean, like, we've been talking to several investors, and there's so many houses that's foreclosed and bankruptcy in town and stuff. I mean, and they've been sitting for years. And we're looking at next spring, maybe potentially to start buying some homes and flipping them and putting them back, getting the town fixed up with some. But my things are, like, you're saying a total remodel, that we've got to do all this stuff. So, I mean, these houses have been set for a while, they're getting moisture and everything in them, they've got mold and stuff in them. So now, once, there's a big problem right there. I mean, you gotta contain it, you gotta go in there, there's a lot of money to take care of that stuff, but all that's gotta all come out. So once that's all taken out, at that point in time, we're into a major remodel then. So the tenants before, or contractors before, you know, they're in here and they put 20 wires into a junction box, that's wrong or whatever, but still at the same point, just because I wanted to go in and get rid of the drywall and the mold, Now, am I gonna be obligated to rewire this house now and put another, $6,000-8,000 into it, or how's this gonna work? I mean,
Mr. Wagner, can you answer that?
I would say if the wires, once you've gutted the walls and opened them up and you find faulty wiring in there, it would be a severe liability on the contractor, number one, if he didn't rewire it down.
but do you just pull out what's wrong and leave the rest, or do you have to rewire,
Yeah,
everything? or
you wouldn't have
just
to rewire the
just
entire
fix,
house,
or-
you would just have to fix what's incorrect. I mean, long as the other wire, was still intact, good shape, but yeah, the junction box with 20 wires coming into it, we all know that's too small,
Right, right.
unless it's a 16 by 16 or something.
And we're just starting this. I mean, we need that type of input, you know what I'm
Well, my
saying?
other question
Nothing's
is,
been
like,
decided.
are we
There's
just
no-
gonna have- Will you guys just have one inspector? Will you have more than
Well-
one inspector? I mean, what's he gonna be qualified? What's this,
Well, you weren't here early. Doug, how many permits were done last year? A new,
Or, since I've been here, we've done maybe a half a dozen permits that would require.
that's all you need, you know, I mean,
Position at
the
best.
basic stuff you do, you don't need a permit. The
Right,
basic
so
stuff
I
I
mean-
do, you know.
stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of licensed contractors around and stuff that could maybe be involved in, and, say, look, let's use, keep it local in the community and say, look, we got a good licensed contractor or a couple different plumbing guys, let them do the inspection and say, okay, we're charging, let's say if it's, $25 for the inspection, give them $12.50 to do the inspection, which takes 5 seconds to put there to the city or something. I don't know, I just asking, just like, it's hard for one person to be certified and everything. If you look at the licensing requirements, for an inspector, I put all this stuff on the computer today, and the classes and stuff that you go through, if you carry your license for 24 hours, you gotta have 60 hours of class time in, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. There's a lot of things to it, plus all the courses that you gotta test out and everything, so that's why I was just curious if it was gonna be, one inspector, or how that would work, or maybe it'd be, if we had some local contractors around town that could do them things that were certified.
Doug
by the
there,
state or something.
area plan, he was inspector in White County, so he could tell you stuff like that.
I got a question about it. This is the 675 IAC.
Yeah.
And this is just the articles, this is just a list of the articles.
That's the rules.
That's the rules, but if you really want to know, rule number, section 1, it's just like one sentence. But if you want to know what's in section 1, isn't there another set of rule books that are like a foot or 2 foot thick?
Well, the code books.
The code books, right.
This just tells you how to enforce the code
Okay.
and what the rules are for the code enforcement with commercial structures
Okay.
on the 675. There's a list, you get further back in there, it gives you a list of what the code books are. Now, the code books, you can bring them in here, set them on a chair, and they're probably gonna be up to about here.
Okay. So that's a little scary to some of us. You understand that, right?
Right.
Because even you probably don't know everything in that code book, right?
After being at White County for 2 years, I had a pretty good idea on most of it.
Okay.
I did question myself when I was out on inspections, but I noted it, and I would come back to the office and look it up before I made a determination or told the contractor that they would have to fix something.
Yeah, I see. So you can see why this looks like a daunting task to us citizens and contractors, I'm sure. If they are 2 foot thick,
You can get online and research all that on Tippecanoe County. And like Brian, the only reason I refer to Tippecanoe County is because I've built there for many years, and they're one of the hardest counties to build in, so if you're passing your inspections up there, you got
Okay.
And this is
But,
just
Nothing to
but
worry
that was
about.
never said, that was
Nowhere
my
else, so
point.
I mean-
that.
I value what you just said about locals. We said that before. Actually, the last couple of years, we put 35,000 or some in the budget, so if we needed inspectors for some reason, we could find local inspectors around, people licensed that could help us. We're just asking for everybody to put their minds together and come up with the best plan we can get.
Right.
We know this one isn't. It's done in '92. It's 2017 almost,
Oh, yeah.
you know? That's where we started at in
That,
this. was-
that ordinance as it stands on the books references to future adoptions of code and stuff. You could start enforcing that ordinance and enforce the current state codes
So,
without any changes. You just have to come up with what the fee schedule is and who's gonna be your building commissioner. to
I think we
enforce
said
it.
that in one of the meetings. I think the mayor said there was only like 5 or 6 lines in there he was really wanting to address.
Yeah.
The rest of it's all been there forever. It's just never been, it's never been
Since,
enforced.
what was it,
Some of it has poor language with like
99 or
dollar amounts too. that-
99 or something, that it was, when Dale quit doing the inspections.
Thought it might have been 97, the paper you gave me.
Yeah, I don't remember for sure off the top of my head, but yeah, there hasn't been inspection from that point on.
97,
97, yeah, I can give you my
96,
copy.
97. It was only in 5 years.
But he's still listed on the state's website.
Is he?
Yeah.
Check it this afternoon.
I think Mr. Bennett does make a good point of, you know, when you have local licensed contractors, electrical, whatever, to use them as inspectors, I think, is sort of a win-win. You know, it gives our local contractors the business and keeps them involved, and I hadn't thought of doing that. I think that's a good idea. And perhaps they could get to it sooner than, I mean, a lot of people have expressed the delays to me. I know Mrs. Coghill just left after the outburst. I think she said enough of this and left, but she has remodeled bought distressed properties, and you know, I was hoping for some input from her tonight, but I guess she said she didn't need the upheaval or something. So, but anyway, I think any input that you people want, you have to tell us, I guess.
Any public comment?
Well, another fear I have is just the slowdown in schedule. You know, I know with Lafayette, for instance, it's, if we adopt, if, we're really with what we have now, is it, the code that we have currently on the books, if we started enforcing it, before you poured concrete, you would need to call the inspector and have him come out and look at the footer and make sure it's deep enough and wide enough and all that. Is that true?
For new construction?
Or for new construction, yeah.
For new construction.
New or a, like an addition onto a house, yeah.
I would say so, that would be my interpretation of it.
And you know, I watched a house go up out here towards the Andersons, you know, recently, and I noticed on Saturdays and Sundays and Friday evenings, I think it was Jeff Watson's house, on my lands, he did so much of that work, just boom, 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 you know, and of course it's all quality work. I mean, in my opinion, it's very high quality work. I mean, I know he insulates really super well and does really good wiring and does, you know, but if you had this program, the amount, I bet that house wouldn't be, I don't know if anybody's living in it, but it wouldn't, it wouldn't be near as far along, you know, and I wonder if a lot of people would even do the work. You know, it's like, you know, whenever there's too much, you just say, you know what, why do that? You know, why build that house? I mean, I've got to take, instead of do it in 120 days, I got to take a year, you know, or whatever. I mean,
Why, I don't understand, why would it take that long?
well, because
I mean, no bigger than we are, you should be able to get a call and get an inspection right away. I mean, we don't have, I mean, it wouldn't hold you up anything. And the paperwork's just a page or two to fill out originally.
Well, and any contractor knows when he needs to schedule a foundation inspection.
Right, and that's what I'm saying, and we're not like, and again, we need to get rid of Tiffany County, we need to concentrate on what we're gonna start and do.
but it's the same code. I mean, what we have.
Well, yeah, it's the same code, but, you know, they have multiple things going on, and someday you have to wait a day or two, right, I agree with you. But here, I don't see that scenario, you know what I'm saying? I don't think it would hold you up, I guess what I'm saying. I mean, we only have 10 inspections a year, I mean, 10 buildings going up a year, you know, and have one inspector, part-time, you know, he should be able to get there pretty dang quick.
It seems as if the delay wouldn't be in the process, it would only be if it was inspected and it was wrong.
Right.
Then there would be a delay, but
Right.
there's just
Yeah,
not
affect
the
that.
volume.
Yeah, I don't see where you'd have the volume. I mean, I had provided the city as well with a proposal to act as the building commissioner, where I'd be in on Wednesdays, a lot of the inspections, like the footing inspection you're talking about.
Yeah.
I do an inspection as director of area plan for the county and enforcing the city's zoning ordinance to verify the setbacks before concrete's poured. I could do both those inspections right now, because all I gotta do is look at the footers and stuff and take measurements. It's all done at the same time.
Okay.
So you give me 24 to 48 hours notice, I'm gonna be able to get out there and do that inspection if I'm acting as building commissioner for the city as well.
Public comment.
Yeah, I do. Been sitting here listening, I've just been thinking. About 8 years ago, or maybe longer, we put an addition on our house because my mom fell and we had to put a handicap bathroom in our house. And we had a guy who we worked with for many years, and he's licensed on all front. And he did the work, and we gave him a beginning time and an ending time, and he got it done for us. And he did a great job, and we never had any problem or anything. I'm sitting here thinking about the growth that, you just mentioned, Brian, that we're not growing and we need to grow. And Dick, you just said that, we only have maybe 10 a year. Well, if you have a big boom for some reason, and kind of like what you're talking about, if you have to have every aspect inspected, that could slow down your construction, that could add cost, and will that deter people from building in an economic boom? That's just my thought. So, I think we need to continue to temper this with common sense of, if you're really wanting to encourage growth, then you can incur a lot of costs with this. So, I think you need to think about that with this, along with this building code regulation. That's my only comment.
I think I would reply, 9 of the fastest growing cities and towns in Indiana, by percent change in population, all have building codes, inspectors, and permits. So in those cities that have those 9 that I listed earlier, McCordsville, Whitestown, Bargersville, Winfield, St. John, West Lafayette, Seymour, I missed one in there, all require building inspections, have building permits. So I don't think you see.
But have you talked to the contractors who deal with those people, with the building codes? Have you talked to, like the ones that are here tonight, they're expressing their concern. Have you talked to people who actually have built in those areas as to what they've had to deal with their building code? Because I think that would be important to find out.
Well, and you could add Logansport to that list too, and they're not necessarily growing. They have all kinds of building codes, and they're not that far from us. Eventually it will grow, absolutely. It's inevitable, the way the climate of the world, the money will start coming back to this country, but at this stage, Zionsville actually is the #1. Their population has not quite doubled, but almost. And I don't remember hearing that one mentioned, but they're on a corridor. We're on a corridor too, but it's a different corridor. Not all cities grow because of what you're saying, because of regulation. It's that cities tend to copy each other. That's why we look at all these other cities. And it's common that we do copy another city because there's so much to look at. Oftentimes that's why we do copy the city. It makes sense too, because there's so much to think about with a small group of people. And when you have more minds in a bigger city, they've figured out some of the details in some ways. But it doesn't mean it's necessarily great to just copy another city We're different. We're Delphi. We set a standard. And in a different way, maybe not the standard that everybody agrees with.
That's
Just
what we're asking,
thought.
for people to have input to make our code.
But
We said we
strongly-
can adjust our code. We said we can come up with what we want to do. You don't, I mean, I don't, you know, we
But
had a
you-
study group, and I ended up being the chair of it, and we came up with a bunch of ideas that were put down, said what you had to have inspections on, what you didn't, ideas to phase things in, was given by Mr. Price, who has electric company, you know, he came with ideas how to phase it in if you didn't do a total remodel. You had to do like a total remodel to do, otherwise you didn't have to. We came up with all kinds of ideas. And that's what we want. You know, we can set our own thing. We have to, if we have inspections, we've got to go to the international codes. But how we do it and when we inspect and how much we inspect, that's what we got to come up with. We talked about phasing because of the age of our buildings, phasing things in.
Is there a way to get a copy of that somehow?
Yeah, I'll give it to you.
Well, what,
A copy of what, sorry?
What he was saying, the plan that was put together.
Okay, you're good.
Well, you know,
I thought you meant the international.
no, I
No, no,
no,
no.
we did.
Yeah, you
This
don't
is some
want to
ideas
do
we
that.
came up with. How to phase it in, what needs to be inspected, what doesn't. I mean,
this is my first meeting, so I was interested in, you know, the house that burnt down across the tracks, across from Whiteman's Elevator. That house was being purchased by the people who was buying it on contract. And they had, I'm told, had no smoke alarms in it. I called the fireman today. He said that 90% of the houses that he goes into don't have proper smoke detectors. So, that being said, what, you know, I think the number one problem is the danger of fire as we've seen here lately. So, is that what's driving this, or what? You know, because we know that you've got an ordinance in Delphi that requires smoke alarms. That house never had a smoke alarm in it, right? There's no ordinance in Delphi, there's nothing in that book that says we're supposed to have smoke alarms in our homes. I mean, I thought it would be common sense, you know, that,
It's in the building code.
Okay.
So on a new or major remodel, you'd be
then
forced
you're
to put,
forced to, otherwise you
you
don't
would
need
be
it.
forced to put them in.
Okay.
By the terms of the building code.
Okay.
And there are communities that utilize a rental registry where they go through every year, 2 years, 3 years, and inspect rental properties and make sure they meet the fire code.
Right.
That is not part of our ordinance.
That's not a part of that ordinance, no, it's not.
Well, my point is, you know, the smoke alarm thing, you know, if, okay, so that house has obviously never been major remodeled, it looked like for me when I drove by it. So therefore it would have not fallen into the category where it even needed a smoke alarm. But yet the young man that was in that house, you know, he could have been, I'm surprised they're alive, because they woke up at 4 in the morning to go to work, smelled smoke, and boom, got everybody out. But if they would have slept till 7, I'm telling you, that there would have been, we'd probably been seeing more fatalities. So my point is, even when you have codes and things like that, you know, so many people take the batteries out, they take the smoke alarms down, and all that. And I talked to a fireman about that today, and he said, you just can't legislate people to, you know, to not monkey with the smoke alarms. You just can't do it. And what's your response to that? I mean that seems like what we really want to worry about here. I mean, that's what I really want to focus on. What's your thoughts, Shane?
Well, this was being addressed before.
Okay.
I personally think a rental registry in the future is a great idea, where we're going through and inspecting rental properties every 1, 2, or 3 years and make sure they meet the ingress and egress, make sure they meet the fire codes. That's, I guess, hasn't been discussed, and I don't think we were going to discuss.
We think you're headed there. We do think you're headed there. You know, but the point is, those people buying that house on contract, they basically owned the house and about had to pay for it, but they never had a smoke alarm in there. You know, so why do you say rental registries there? I mean, what about me and you, Shane, whether we have a smoke alarm in our house? I mean, why just rental register.
I don't know if any community utilizes a residential registry. I don't.
You've never heard of one.
Okay.
Well, it's mandated when you build to put them in,
Uh-huh.
but there's no way to follow up afterwards. Like you said, I have rentals, they take the batteries out. Now,
Right.
new construction, commercial, you have to have hardwired ones, so, you know, that you can't take out. But yeah, that's, I don't think I've seen that in any code where you have inspection for, except like West Side, every 6 months, they do their rental properties. See, they're real strict. They go through the rental properties and that's when they catch it. But as far as the regular code, that wouldn't be part of it. That's still on us.
I think the driving force, but are you asking kind of what got this going?
Yeah.
I thought, correct me, counsel, if I'm wrong, I thought the driving force was, we have no checks and balances, no building code enforcement in place to regulate what's being put in these homes. So it's not so much a concern when you're working on your own home, but who's to say the person that buys that down the road is gonna be living in a home that has electrical that's been installed up to standards? And so that was kind of what got this started. And then also we're in a community where buildings sometimes share walls or they're so close to each other that how do you protect the guy that's done everything right, that's right beside the guy that's taken all the shortcuts? There just is nothing secure in place, and now we're to the point of what does that look like? And I think that's kind of where council and mayor are trying to get to, is what works for this community, because this isn't a community that needs the super strict standards, and I don't think we're to the rental registry and things like that. We're just to the basic, are people doing things safely and up to the minimum standards? And right now, we're just not even there.
Well, one thing that concerned me too was in that Lafayette situation, that 1,200 square foot house that they bought needed 6 smoke alarms, and they have to be interwired together. So that if the thing in the basement by the furnace goes off, all 6 smoke alarms go off in the whole house. Or if you're burning your steak on the stove, all 6 smoke alarms go off in the whole house. And that just seems good.
If the smoke alarm is within 20 feet, I believe it is, of a range or cooking device, it has to be either photoelectric or one with a button that you can temporary silencing feature so it doesn't go off when you're burning your steak on the stove.
Okay, well, I'm gonna have to tell my friend that, because he's concerned that he's been impressed, because, to take 110 wiring and run all those 6 together, make them, all go off.
That is the code, an
Yeah.
option I gave folks in White County when they were doing a remodel where they didn't have the ceilings and stuff out, was they can you can actually purchase a wireless interconnected smoke detector. But they're about $80 each. It's cheaper to run the wire if it's feasible to do it at all.
Okay.
But that's so when the one goes off in the basement and you're asleep upstairs, you're gonna hear it because there's one in your bedroom that's going off too.
Okay. So there's no way you're gonna hear it if you're upstairs and the basement goes off.